Guys, this has been a really stressful week for a lot of people. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, the now famous murder in North Carolina, the public train, I believe it was a train murder. In terms of people debating this, people are very upset. People are very sadly joyous and celebratory. It's a very strange and stressful week. So I said, let me go over some of my favorite Star Trek episodes to see how assassination and murder is dealt with. Now, you guys are Star Trek fans, so I don't think you'd be watching. You know that in the Star Trek universe that Gene Roddenberry created, there shouldn't be, or there's very little crime, especially murder, or assassination, but it does come around. So here is the first. This is from the original series, Conscience of the King. One of my favorites. Wonderful in all ways in acting and in writing. Okay. This is the Star Trek original series where Captain Kirk is suspects that a renowned Shakespearean actor, Anton Caridian, is secretly Kodos the Executioner. I love that The Simpsons has Kang and Kodos as, I guess, a tribute. So Kodos was a dictator responsible for a past massacre, and Kirk investigates. The other survivors of the atrocity begin to die under mysterious circumstances. So Kirk brings the actors, all the actors aboard the Enterprise to get closer to Caridian and his daughter, Lenore. So tension builds up whether is Caridian the true villain from Kirk's past or is it someone else? But the ultimate reveal, of course, is that the daughter, Lenore, has been the one killing the witnesses to protect her father. In the end, the truth is revealed and Caridian dies protecting his daughter, who is left in a state of delusion. And she actually kills the father, accidentally with a phaser. So it's a really powerful one in so many ways. And I think, again, it sort of highlights the idea that Gene Roddenberry's universe didn't have or shouldn't have much crime, certainly murder, assassination, but it does happen. All right. The Next Generation TNG episode, The Mind's Eye, one of my favorites. Geordi LaForge is abducted by Romulans while on his way to a conference. Don't they always love to abduct people? They use his visor, to help him see, to subject him to brutal forms of mental conditioning, brainwashing, turning him into an unwitting assassin. So now the Romulans' plan is to use Geordi to assassinate a Klingon governor. They can wipe their hands clean and Geordi will be blamed, right? Thereby framing the Federation and reigniting the war between the two empires. A little bit of war is on their plan. So returning to the Enterprise with no memory of his ordeal, Geordi unknowingly carries out tasks that implicate the Federation. But Data to the rescue, detects strange energy patterns and begins to piece together a pattern, eventually realizing that Geordi is being controlled from within the ship by a traitorous Klingon ambassador. The crew race to expose the plot and stop Geordi before he can complete his deadly mission. What's so great about this episode is that the director, he wanted to include some supporting players from the famous movie The Manchurian Candidate, which deals with a very similar scenario, and that was the script's intent to kind of tribute that movie. He couldn't get anyone from the old movie, but he did the scene where Geordi kills O'Brien in terms of the holographic simulation he's practicing for. So that was sort of a tribute. All right, Next Generation episode again, Suspicions. This is where Beverly Crusher, the doctor, is relieved of her duties. She faces a Starfleet inquiry after she disobeys a direct order from Captain Picard. Happens very rarely, right? Where they don't listen and don't respect and obey his orders. Now, the episode is told through a flashback, which is so cool, that the timescaping, as Crusher explains the situation to Guinan, good old Guinan from 10 Forward. It revolves around a Ferengi scientist, Dr. Rhaegar, who has developed a revolutionary metaphasic shield, allowing a shuttle to enter a star's corona without getting, toasted out and burnt to a crisp. When a test of the shield goes wrong, and a Takarian scientist named Jobrill, great makeup on that alien. It's one of my favorite alien makeups. He prepares to die, and Rhaegar is later found dead in an apparent suicide. So Crusher suspects foul play, despite a Ferengi religious custom forbidding it. And Picard's explicit order, she performs an autopsy to find evidence of a murder. After her career is put in jeopardy, She continues her investigation, which ultimately leads to prove that the shield works and that Joe Brill faked his own death to steal the technology, and that's why he murdered Rhaegar. So this is an interesting one because it not only is murder, but it's, theft. It's kind of greed, thievery and theft and murder, which again is so rare in Roddenberry's universe in Star Trek. But of course, this was an alien, meaning that humans in Roddenberry's mind and vision would never really, stoop to murder, or certainly for the most part. Aliens, on the other hand, all bets are off, right? And finally, one of my favorite all-time Deep Space Nines. This is The Field or Field of Fire, a series of seemingly random murders plagues DS9, with the victims all being killed by a rare chemically propelled bullet from an experimental Starfleet rifle. The case becomes really personal for Ezri Dax, as the method of killing and the hunt for the killer triggers memories of a past host, the unhinged murderer Joran. And this is what makes it great. So she has to go back in her mind with all her hosts, and Joran is one of them, and he was a murderer. Now, to solve the case, Ezri reluctantly allows Joran's personality to surface, to sort of, have a mental meeting with this murdering, former host. To solve the case, she must take his advice, using his insight into the mind of a killer to track down the perpetrator. The investigation reveals that the killer is a Vulcan officer who sort of suffers severe psychological breakdowns during a recent battle and is now targeting people who exhibit happiness and joy. Ultimately, Ezri confronts the killer, using Joran's guidance to stop the murders before they can claim yet another victim. And if you watch this, if you haven't seen it, everything about it is so good. It's so engaging. It's such a mystery. O'Brien's trying to help, because he's the tech guru and the engineer. Ezri is like, I gotta get Joran because he's my murderer in my mental, suitcase there, my memories and host. And there you go. I mean, what would you do? Would you go and sort of take a murderer as advice? It reminds me of what? Silence of the Lambs, where, ate his liver with fava beans and Chianti, right? So, you gotta get advice, you gotta get experience. And I don't know why Ezri shouldn't have just used AI more in the holodeck, but she chose to do Joran. So there you go. Watch these episodes. If you haven't, I recommend, apart from, say, the murder and assassination, sort of angles, they're just great episodes. So tell us what you think. Give us your feedback. Hope you're enjoying. Hope you're subscribing. See you soon.